Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. Amid opposition's demands for Sushma Swaraj's ouster, Lalit Modi's lawyer defends her and his client says Modi doesn't have a blue corner notice against him, alleges Congress ministers of hounding him. The empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers on GST will submit its views to the parliamentary panel looking into the constitutional amendment bill for introduction of new indirect tax regime. Rahul Gandhi, to conclude his two-day visit to Chhattisgarh today, will hold a march for the farmers in the state a day after criticizing the Modi government's development model. And former Florida Governor Jeb Bush now launches a U.S. presidential campaign, vows to move out of the shadows of the Bush family legacy. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. A day after the opposition demanded External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj's resignation, former IPL chief Lalit Modi's lawyer came out in defense of her and his client. Mahmood Abdi denied that Modi is a fugitive and a blue corner notice was issued against him. Backing the minister's action as humanitarian, he accused the Congress of hounding Modi during its tenure at the centre. Here's more.
We had people like IMG who were...
Former IPL chief Lalit Modi finally responded to the row over External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, helping him secure emergency travel plans in Britain. He came out with a series of tweets and a detailed defense by his lawyer Mahmood Abdi.
Has there been any proceeding against him in any court of law which has declared him an offender? He is not an offender. He is staying with knowledge of everybody in UK by following the due process of UK immigration laws.
He accused Congress of having issues with Lalit Modi when the party was in power. Abdi also alleged that some of the ministers in the UPA government hounded Modi to save former Minister Shashi Tharoor ever since he broke the Sunanda Pushkar sweat equity issue on Twitter.
I can go on record that Mr. Shashi Tharoor, Mr. P. Chidambaram and Mr. Salman Khurshid in their respective capacities not only tried to harass him in India, but in his UK proceedings also, they tried to interfere with the legal process, and it was established when Mr. Modi filed his application under the UK Freedom of Information Act, which is parallel of RTI in India, that these very people and other officials in India, they were trying to interfere and influence the UK authorities.
However, Congress remains firm on its demand to oust Sushma Swaraj. It has also questioned the role of the Prime Minister as well.
Sushma Swaraj is a minor minister in the government. It means nothing in this government. There is only one man who's running this country and this government. That is Mr. Narendra Modi. And Mr. Narendra Modi should stop protecting Mr. Lalit Modi.
On Monday, opposition parties turned up the heat on the Narendra Modi government. They accused Sushma Swaraj of facilitating travel documents for Lalit Modi outside UK. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has also demanded the release of letters written to the British government on the Lalit Modi case. He had reportedly told Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne in 2013 that Britain should deport Modi as his passport was impounded in India and his UK visa had run out. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me for a chat this morning to talk about this very subject is Manish Chaturvedi, Senior Editor, The Indian Express. Good morning, Manish. Thank you for joining me on the program this morning. As far as this entire issue is concerned, from a legal point of view, of course, was there anything wrong that Sushma Swaraj did? And, as far as Modi itself is concerned, did he require permission from the Indian government to travel outside of the UK?
No, on the legal side, there is nothing wrong in what Mrs. Swaraj has done. But ethical issues and politics is all about ethics. So it's a basic, ethical issue with whatever she has done. He was running away from Indian law. He was staying in the UK, citing alleged persecution by Indian authorities. So in helping him, has Mrs. Swaraj, does she also believe that he was being persecuted? After all, governments do function in perpetuity. So if the UPA government, the previous government, they had made a request to the UK government to deport him back, so shouldn't Mrs. Raj have also been following up on the same?
Indeed. As far as Modi's legal status in the UK is concerned, what is his legal status there? Is he allowed to travel? Is he not allowed to travel? What is the entire issue as far as his legal status living in the UK is concerned?
He's living there without a visa till because his passport was reinstated just a few months ago. So he was without an Indian passport because it had been impounded, and he was living there citing persecution, and they had granted him temporary stay. So in order to travel out of the UK, which he wanted to travel for his wife's treatment, he required UK papers, official papers, and a UK passport also. So in order to do that, he applied for that, but I think the UK government, their rules are that since he was living there as an alien and on a temporary stay, so they needed the concurrence of the Indian government, which Mrs. Swaraj, for some strange reason, decided to go ahead and give. Now she is cited a humanitarian gesture as one of the reasons that led her to act in the manner in which she did. But what is very strange is that would she do the same for every other fugitive from Indian law? Whatever his lawyer says or said yesterday, the fact remains that there was a blue corner notice against him, that he was he was not cooperating with Indian law agencies, that the enforcement directorate has a number of cases against him, and which run into hundreds of crores the volume. And after knowing all this, I'm sure in her capacity as the External Affairs Minister, she was aware of all this, and despite that, she allowed, she extended this help to him. So that all leaves us to ask this very fundamental question: was she aware, or did she do this in spite of the ethical issues involved?
All right, and as far as Lalit Modi's lawyer is concerned, he has come out and defended both Sushma Swaraj as well as his client Lalit Modi. He has said there was no blue corner notice issued against him, and this is a vendetta against his client.
No. If I remember correctly, what he has said is that there was no red corner notice against him. Blue corner notice was issued. That is our knowledge. It had been issued, and a blue corner notice basically means that the Indian government wanted to know his whereabouts, which they did. So about vendetta, every accused cites vendetta as one of the reasons, and while seeking relief from various courts or authorities. That is something, but I come back to my earlier premise. If he was staying in the UK citing persecution by Indian authorities, Indian law enforcement authorities, every accused who, even Dawood Ibrahim, for that matter, is citing the same, and initially he had said that Indian agencies were after him. Mrs. Swaraj, and I think the Congress is right in asking her, will she extend the same favor to Dawood Ibrahim?
All right. Manish Chaturvedi, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for putting things into perspective for us this morning and sharing your expertise on this very subject. Moving on now, here's a look at what else is lined up for the day today in our segment, The Day Ahead. Tripura Chief Minister Manik Sarkar will be meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. He will be meeting the Prime Minister as a special representative of all northeastern states, urging him to continue the special category status given to them. The central government had withdrawn the decades-old status after lack on comprehensive development in the region despite the tag. Ram Janmabhoomi Nyas Trust will be holding a meeting on the temple at Ayodhya. Senior VHP leaders including Ashok Singhal, Praveen Togadia and Nyas President Mahant Nitya Gopal Das are expected to attend the meeting. The local administration has issued an alert and deployed security forces at vital points in the twin towns of Ayodhya and Faizabad. The Allahabad High Court will hear a PIL demanding a CBI probe into the death of journalist Jagendra Singh in Shahjahanpur. A PIL was filed by an NGO over the incident, stating that it was so serious in nature that it calls for a CBI probe. A direction has also been sought for providing proper compensation to the scribe's family. A court in Jodhpur will hear cell-style Godman Asaram's bail plea. It is the sixth bail application of Asaram, who is imprisoned. Asaram has been lodged in the Jodhpur jail for the past 1.5 years in connection with a case of sexual exploitation of a teenage girl. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, will hold an emergency meeting of foreign ministers to discuss the situation in Yemen at the organization's headquarters in Jeddah today. The meeting, which is being held after request from the government of Yemen, coupled with the approval of a majority of the OIC member states, will consider the situation in Yemen and ways to ensure the return of security and stability there. Moving on now, the Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers on GST will submit its views to the parliamentary panel looking into the constitutional amendment bill for introduction of new indirect tax regime. The committee will be meeting today over the matter. Chairman of the committee, K.M. Mani, has said that most of the states are in agreement with GST. The centre proposes to roll out goods and services tax from April 2016. The constitutional amendment bill for rolling out of GST has been referred to a Rajya Sabha select committee. The Lok Sabha has already cleared the bill. States are pressing the centre for compensating them fully for the loss of revenue in the first 5 years of GST replacing their taxes. The centre has agreed to compensate the states fully in the first 3 years and partially in the fourth and the fifth year. Well, many farmers' organizations came out in opposition to the changes in the land acquisition bill. This was while giving their representation to the Joint Committee of Parliament that's examining the land acquisition bill. Here's a report.
Farmers' organizations once again voiced their concerns over the Land Acquisition Act amendments brought in by the NDA government. On Monday, representatives of the National Alliance of People's Movement and similar organizations met the Parliament Joint Committee examining the bill and expressed reservations on the removal of consent clause and social impact assessment clause.
The social impact assessment and consent were the two clauses which created space for the affected people who are not just affected, who are real investors of the land and everything attached to land in the development process. That space was granted to them and now that is being denied.
किसानों की सहमति ना लेने की जो बात कही गई है उससे किसानों को बहुत बड़ा एक झटका लगेगा. किसानों की सहमति बहुत जरूरी है. हमने इन सब बातों को समिति के सामने रखा.
Others who appeared before the Joint Committee also suggested setting up of a farmers' land bank to smoothen the acquisition process.
जमीन लेना है तो सरकार के इस ढंग के इसके ये जरूरत नहीं है. किसानों की ये लैंड बैंक बननी चाहिए जिसमें परचेसर और सेलर किसान उन्होंने खुले दिल से लेना चाहिए. फोर्सिबली एक्विजिशन नहीं करना चाहिए.
हम इसका विरोध करते हैं इसलिए कि ये सारा कुछ किसान की ज़मीन को छीनने के लिए हमें लगता है ये किया जा रहा है और किसान का जो हक है वो अगर ज़मीन से वो निकलना चाहता है तो उसका आदान प्रदान नेगोशिएट करके उसके साथ बात हो तो फिर तो चलता है.
A few more organizations will present their stand before the Joint Committee on Tuesday. The committee has to submit its report on the first day of the monsoon session of Parliament, which is likely to begin in the second half of July. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
Well, it's time now for a short break, but still to come. Finance Minister to leave on a 10-day trip to the US to hard sell the India story. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Uttarakhand faced one of the worst flash floods in 2013. Nature unleashing havoc on the temple town of Kedarnath.
The million-dollar question now is that how can the pace of the rehabilitation work be expedited?
सरकार की तरफ से कुछ भी सुविधाएं नहीं. हम लोग तो ये महसूस कर रहे हैं कि आपदा हम पे 2 साल पहले नहीं, अब आपदा आ गई है.
On the second anniversary of the tragedy, RSTV brings you a special report. Uttarakhand floods 2 years hence.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will conclude his two-day visit to Chhattisgarh today. He will address a rally in Dhabra after leading a march for farmers in the state. On Monday, he launched a direct attack against Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his model of development. Here's more.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi started a two-day visit to Chhattisgarh on Monday, pitching for forest rights for tribals. He slammed the BJP governments at the state and the centre while questioning their development model.
आदिवासी लोग जंगल से जुड़े हुए लोग होते हैं, उनकी जिंदगी जंगल से जुड़ी हुई होती है। आप जंगल से फल लेते हो, तेंदू पत्ता लेते हो, अलग अलग चीजें लेते हो, और अगर माइन आई और जंगल चला गया तो एक प्रकार से आपका हाथ कट गया। सही बात है, गलत बात? तो मोदी जी बड़े बड़े भाषण देते, कहते विकास, मगर मेरा यह सवाल है कि विकास होगा और होना चाहिए, मगर इस विकास में आदिवासियों के बच्चों का क्या भाग होगा, यह सवाल है।
Rahul also hit out at the NDA's land ordinance that omits the consent clause for farmers and carrying out a social audit before acquiring land.
अगर 5 साल में प्रयोग नहीं हुआ तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, एक बार जमीन ले ली तो ले ली, और सोशल ऑडिट तो छोड़ो। सोशल ऑडिट का क्या मतलब? अगर आदिवासियों से जमीन ली जा रही है तो ये इनकी जमीन है, उनसे पूछ के जमीन ली जाए, उनसे पूछ के ली जाए। और दूसरी बात, अगर विकास हो रहा है तो उसमें आदिवासी का भी विकास हो, उसमें आदिवासी भी शामिल हो।
Promising to uphold the rights of Jal, Jangal and Zameen for state residents, Rahul said his party will stand with the tribals just as it is doing with farmers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a look now at what else is making news across the country and nationwide. Petrol prices were hiked by 64 paise a litre and diesel prices were cut by 1.35 rupees per litre in line with the trend in global oil rates. The revision in rates came into effect from midnight of June 15. Petrol in the national capital will now cost 66.93 rupees per litre, while a litre of diesel will now cost 50.93 rupees. This is the third increase in petrol prices since May. Former Delhi Law Minister Jitendra Singh Tomar's police custody was extended for 4 days by a Delhi court in the alleged fake degree case. Delhi police had sought 8-day custodial interrogation of Jitendra Singh Tomar, claiming that Tomar was not cooperating in the investigation. The Aam Aadmi Party leader was arrested last week in connection with his fake law degree. Hundreds of ex-servicemen began a relay hunger strike at Jantar Mantar on Monday over the delay in implementation of the One Rank, One Pension scheme. Different batches of 50 to 55 ex-servicemen will sit on a 24-hour hunger strike every day till a specific date for implementing the OROP scheme is not announced. Students of Film and Television Institute of India have warned of an indefinite strike over the issue of appointment of TV actor and BJP member Gajendra Chauhan as the chairman of the institute. The students, whose agitation enters the 5th day today, have kept open the channels for dialogue with the INB ministry but refused to compromise on their basic demand of removal of Chauhan. The flood situation in Assam continues to remain grim as most rivers flowed above the danger mark due to relentless rainfall. Over 300,000 people have been affected from the floods, with the worst hit areas being Barpeta, Dhemaji, Nalbari, Lakhimpur, Sonitpur and Kamrup. The Assam State Disaster Management Authority has already put the state on high alert and relief camps have been set up to accommodate the people affected. Moving on now, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will begin his 10-day tour of the United States today. During his visit, Jaitley will be meeting US Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew. He will also be travelling to New York and Washington. Jaitley will also be meeting foreign institutional investors and industry leaders to hard sell the India story. In Washington, the Finance Minister is slated to meet the US Treasury Secretary, and in San Francisco, he will hold a roundtable with the US-India Business Council. While in New York, Jaitley will interact with the officials of the New York Stock Exchange, meet FIIs and address students of 2 institutes. India has received $1.82 billion in foreign direct investment from the US in 2014-15. Having opened up several sectors to foreign investment, India has been projecting itself as a favorable destination for attracting foreign funds. It's time for a short break now, but coming up on the other side, Jeb Bush announces candidacy for the 2016 US presidential polls. That and other world news on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Get live Rajya Sabha session. News, views, reports and analysis you can trust on social media. Subscribe, follow, like Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush announced his candidacy for the 2016 US presidential race in front of his home crowd in Miami on Monday, vowing to come out of the Bush family legacy formed by his father, George Bush Sr. and brother George Bush Jr. He pledged to protect the most vulnerable in the society. His campaign logo too avoids using the family surname. Here's more.
Continuing the legacies left behind by his father and brother, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush officially launched his US presidential campaign on Monday.
Ayúdenos en tener una campaña que les da la bienvenida. Trabajen con nosotros por los valores que compartimos y para un gran futuro que es nuestro para construir para nosotros y nuestros hijos. Júntense. I will campaign as I would serve, going everywhere, speaking to everyone, keeping my word, facing the issues without flinching, and staying true to what I believe. I will take nothing and no one for granted. I will run with heart, and I will run to win.
Some view his surname as a major political liability. But Jeb Bush vowed to move out of the shadows of his family.
The Honorable Jeb Bush.
He presented himself as an anti-Washington figure with a can-do spirit.
We will take command of our future once again in this country. We will lift our sights again, make opportunity common again, get events in the world moving our way again. We will take Washington, the static capital of this dynamic country, and turn it out of the business of causing problems, and we'll get it back on the right side of free enterprise and freedom for all Americans.
He used his speech to appeal to a broad swath of the US electorate as Republicans view minorities as increasingly important, not just their Republican conservative base. Jeb is yet to dominate a wide field of Republican candidates and prove his worth. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now. An Egypt court is expected to come out with the final ruling on the death sentence to former President Mohamed Morsi today. On May 16th, Morsi, along with the over 100 members of the Muslim Brotherhood, were sentenced to death in connection with a mass jailbreak back in 2011. The court previously referred the files of the defendants to the Grand Mufti for consultation. The defendants include the former President, Brotherhood Supreme Guide Mohammad Badi, former Parliamentary Speaker Saad al-Khattatni, and renowned Muslim scholar Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Morsi was also sentenced in April to 20 years imprisonment in the presidential palace case alongside 12 other defendants. They were accused of violence that erupted outside the presidential palace on the 5th of December 2012. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is holding an emergency meeting to discuss the crisis after rising MERS cases. The committee is to decide whether the outbreak could turn into a global health emergency and takes appropriate steps. The death toll in South Korea alone has climbed to 16. Here's more.
Owing to the rising threat due to the MERS virus, The World Health Organization is holding an emergency meeting today to discuss the crisis. The health agency stressed that the number of new cases was decreasing, but warned that the situation needs to be closely monitored. The committee will determine whether the current outbreak constitutes a global health emergency. The death toll due to the Middle East respiratory syndrome in South Korea has risen to 16. South Korea has suffered the largest outbreak of the virus outside Saudi Arabia, with 150 cases reported so far. The latest casualty being a 72-year-old woman.
확진자는 총 150명이고요. 현재 치료 중인 환자가 120명, 퇴원 환자가 14명, 사망 환자가 16명이었습니다.
Thousands of tourists have cancelled plans to visit South Korea, but the South Korean government has said such a reaction is not warranted as infected patients are being treated in hospitals. Korea's cases are believed to be traced back to a businessman who returned from the Middle East. MERS symptoms range from flu-like aches and pains to pneumonia and kidney failure. The virus is considered a deadlier version of SARS, which appeared in 2003 and killed more than 800 around the world. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a look now at what else is making news across the world in our World Wrap. US-backed Kurdish fighters captured large sections of a strategic town on the Syria-Turkish border, dealing the biggest setback yet to the Islamic State group, which lost a key supply line for their nearby self-proclaimed capital. The seizure of the Tal Abyad threatened to flare tensions between Kurds and ethnic Arabs, who accused the Kurdish militia of deliberately displacing thousands of people from the town, which has a mixed population. The fighting has prompted thousands of civilians to flee to nearby Turkey. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir has returned to Khartoum from South Africa, avoiding arrest over war crimes charges on an international warrant. Bashir flew out of South Africa despite an order barring him from leaving, while a Pretoria court decided whether to arrest him on charges issued by the International Criminal Court. Bashir was visiting Johannesburg for an African Union summit. The Pretoria High Court issued an order for Bashir's arrest hours after his aircraft left the country. Suspected Islamist suicide bombers killed at least 27 people in the Chadian capital, N'Djamena, in what appeared to be retaliation by Nigerian militant group Boko Haram for Chad's leading role in a regional offensive against it. At least 100 people were injured in two simultaneous attacks on a police headquarters and training school. It was the first strike of its kind in the Central African nation, which has emerged as a firm Western ally against Islamist groups in the Sahel. America's First Lady Michelle Obama is on a two-day visit to the UK. Obama was accompanied by her teenage daughters Malia and Sasha and her mother Marion Robinson. As part of the Let Girls Learn initiative and following her recent visits to Japan and Cambodia, the US First Lady will visit London, where she will meet with students and discuss how the UK and the US are working together to expand access to girls' education around the world. There's a look now at some sports action from around the world in our Sports Beat. World number 2 Roger Federer survived a scare in the opening round of the Jerry Weber Open in Hall. Federer recovered from 5-3 down in the final set to beat German Philipp Kohlschreiber 7-6, 3-6, 7-6 to make a successful start to his grass court campaign. The Swiss top seed is looking for his 8th title at Hall. Well, in a pulsating encounter in the Copa America, Chile and Mexico played out a 3-3 draw. Owusu opened the scoring for Mexico in the 21st minute, but Juventus midfielder Vidal equalized in the next minute. Both teams went into half-time with 2 goals each. In the second half, Vidal gave Chile the lead with his second goal, but this time, Owusu levelled the matters for Mexico to keep them alive in the tournament. Double World Cup winner Brazilian footballer Zico died at the age of 82. Zito had been unwell since suffering a stroke last year. He played alongside Pelé when Brazil won the World Cup in 1958 and 1962 and scored in the 3-1 victory over Czechoslovakia in the 1962 final. That's it on this edition of the Bulletin. Have a nice day.